Hey, what is going on, everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and welcome back to one of these videos here. If you have been waiting for one of these videos for the end of the year, which has now been a long-standing tradition on the channel since 2016. So I'd say that's pretty good, especially in internet years. Now, for those who do not know, this is a video where I kind of just come on here and it's more of a talking head thing. There's not too much visual that's happening here. So, I mean, I have the background. I have Lily just chilling in the back. And then I'm going to intersperse gameplay here and there. But for the most part, this is more a video that you can listen to is what I'm saying. And this is where I talk about every single game that I have finished throughout the year. So I'd like to keep a list of this, and my goal is to beat at least one game a month. Now, I also typically talk about how and why this all came about. Years ago, I used to listen to the Weapon Wheel podcast, and it's not that I have anything against it now, I just don't listen to it these days. But it was from Broken Games HD, or now I guess known as Broken Games HDR. And for several years, what they were doing was at the end of the year, they would all compete to see how many games that they had finished, and they would count up, and whoever finished the most games that year end up winning. And it was always entertaining because you ended up seeing people who they were trying to just play like some like scrub easy games at the very end of the year, literally even like December 31st, to get like 1, 2, maybe 3 more games finished under their belt to see if they could really compete with that. But I thought that was really cool, and I was like, let me go ahead and do this here. And that came about actually a few months later. It was in early 2016. That's after I'd graduated college. I started working my first, adult job, you can say. And in regards to that, I realized that I didn't have as much time to sit down and game. And even if I did, sometimes I just really didn't have the energy for it. But the first few months, I was finishing at least a game a month. And I said, you know what? I think that's going to be something that keeps me on track here, because gaming is something I know, I love. And it's nothing that I really ever want to put down at this point. So finishing one game a month is definitely attainable. However, even as life really punches at you at times, and as you get busy, you'll be surprised when there's times like, wow, it is the 29th of the month and I haven't even finished a game. Like, I need to finish like something quick. Like, I need to find like a 1-hour game and I need to carve out some time. And that's happened in like many different spots in my life. And actually, you're probably going to see it here as well too. In fact, I'm sure people are going to see it here, where there's going to be like, there's going to be months where I finish like 5 games. And then there's months where it's like, I struggle to finish one game, but I end up finishing one short game. And that's how it happens. So it's something that I've been doing ever since 2016. I've been finishing at least one game a month, and it's something that I'm happy with, proud of, and also this has gone on for so long that it's funny, because I have people in the comments and even in my personal life, they ask me sometimes like, hey, do you still do that thing where you're like finishing a game a month? And I say, yeah. They're like, that's really cool, man. Even one of my best friends who I co-op with every week, we play some games together remotely. He even says, like, whenever we finish a game together, he's like, hey, does this count? Does this count towards, did you finish a game yet this month? Like, does this count towards that? I'm like, yes, it does. So the only other stipulation I have is that once I count a game 1 month, that's it. So, for example, like Untitled Goose Game, if I finish that game, actually, no, a good one. Here we go. If I finish Ring Fit Adventure 3 times in a year, but the first time I finish it is in May, it only counts towards May. I can't count it towards May and August and December. The first time I finish the game is the only time I can count it. I can replay games from previous years, that's fine, but if I finish a game the first time in a year, it's going to count for that first month, and that's it. I even got some community feedback on that a few years ago. I asked about it, and I'm happy the community did say this, but they're like, no. Count it the first time you count it, that's it. You can only count the first time. So there we go. That's actually going to be another thing right here. My apologies. I'm actually still recovering from a sinus infection that I had, where it's all good. Thankfully, I'm all good. Haven't had to take any medication. I'm pretty good energy-wise, voice-wise. I think I'm okay. However, I'm still going to have some occasional coughs, so forgive me if there's going to be some coughs here and there. That's just how it goes if you've ever had anything like chest infection, sinus infection, whatever it is. You still kind of have like a light cough for like several weeks afterwards, but we're all good for the most part. Either way, let's finally get into this here. So I have this big here we go, this big pile of games that we're going to be going through. And also a heads up, not every single game is on here. There's going to be some games that are also representative, and I'm going to get into that. But some games are not on here because some of them I don't own, and some of them are digital titles. So let's just go ahead, hop right in, and we're going to be covering the month of January. So for this here, the first game I ended up finishing was a co-op game, Streets of Rage 4. I played this before. I finished it before. I believe it was one of my friends that I co-op with. I believe this was the game that we had ended up finishing together. But either way, played this in co-op. It was definitely a fun experience. Pick this up, by the way, if you're looking for a good side-scroller, this is a great one here. And there's actually going to be an even better one that I'm going to mention here later on. And actually, you don't have to wait too much longer. This is a good one, though. This is definitely a good one. It's even one of those games where when it was first announced, people looked at the art style and they're like, this looks awful. This is like some trash Flash game that you would see ported over to Android or something. This looks bad. This cannot be Streets of Rage 4. But it is. And it's actually incredibly good. And it's gotten some really stellar free updates and free content, which I definitely recommend checking out. So Streets of Rage 4, that was the first game I ended up finishing. The next game, which I'd worked on for several months beforehand, then I finished it in January, was 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. This was a fun one, not only because I have finished this on PlayStation 4 and I absolutely loved it. I'll put it like this. This is the type of game, this is a great demonstration of why I don't really pay attention to reviews and I have to play a game for myself. Because when I looked at the reviews for this game, when I looked at the gameplay, the screenshots, I was like, not for me. No. Then when I went to visit one of my friends, she kept telling me about this game. She kept telling me about this game over and over. And at one point she found out, she's like, wait, you haven't played it? So she fired it up on her PS4. She puts the controller in my hand. She's like, yo, I'm going to go use the bathroom, play this. I played 30 minutes of it. The reason why I stopped is because I went online and I went to purchase the game. Like, that's how excellent it was. I finished on PS4 years ago, so I decided to pick it up on Switch because you will probably notice from the giant stack of like red right here, I really love the Switch just because I love that platform. I love playing on it, and my ideal thing is typically like I'm cozy, like if I'm gaming and I want to be comfortable, I'm on my couch, I'm playing like this, and then I have like something playing on the TV in the background. So the big screen is not doing that much work. It's playing something really menial, and the small screen is what I'm enjoying, and I just kind of like playing cozy like that. Sorry, not sorry. That's kind of how I play. Either way, going back to why I played this on Switch here, well, I picked it up because I wanted it on Switch. I wanted it in that cozy experience. But the interesting thing here, the reason why I find this funny is because the game is not super well optimized. If you play this on PS4, it doesn't seem like it'd be that bad because it's kind of like a visual novel RTS type game all in one. Again, a game I would not gravitate towards at all. The visual novel thing, fine. The RTS mech stuff, take it or leave it. But I played it on PS4 Pro, mind you, and especially the last level chugs like 10 frames a second maybe. Would you believe me if I told you all that the game, especially the final level, performed better on the Switch than it did on the PS4 Pro? It's definitely not an issue of power. It was an issue of optimization. Definitely surprised me, but it's still a phenomenal game. Whether you're going to play it on PlayStation 4 or Switch, definitely play this one. And again, a game where even if you look at it and you're like, this game looks silly, like I'm not into this, dude, try it. It's good. It's really good. The third game here, which I had played before, but now I actually got to finish the official release of it here, was Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. Now, it's funny because I have a video that occasionally, depending on what happens related to Doki Doki, sometimes gets some traction on the channel. I end up reviewing a homebrew port of it on Switch a few years ago. Now, for anyone who does not know, this was released originally on Steam as a cute visual novel, and I really don't want to say much else about it because I do not want to spoil it at all. It is best if you go in blind. So I'm not going to be talking about the actual story itself or anything, just talking about the game itself. So it was a free visual novel that released on Steam, but then what some folks started doing is they started porting it over to other consoles, such as PSP, Vita, 3DS, Switch, and I reviewed the Switch port. So it's cool because like whenever, like for example, when this got announced, a lot of people saw that video. They were commenting about it when it came out. When news comes out, like there's an update or something, people watch that video. And maybe some of the best comments I've gotten have been like, wow, this is a really interesting look at like what the Switch port like could have been, or like what it existed like on the Switch before we got Plus. Because for anyone who doesn't know, this is a more refined version of the visual novel. It has a bunch of added stuff in there, added bonuses, more content is what I'm saying on here. Plus this one you actually have to pay for, not just a physical version, the digital version you do have to pay for, which I think most people who are fans of Doki Doki Literature Club are fine. If anything, it's kind of like a tip jar for the game for some that they really enjoyed. So yeah, the exclusive content it says here is like there's 6 new side stories, which were really great. Really great. If you enjoy Doki Doki Literature Club, you need to play Plus, is what I'm saying. So I played those 13 additional music tracks. So essentially it's like a director's cut, over 100 unlockable images, and then some unique goodies on the inside, which, yeah, it has some extra stuff on the inside as well, too. So what I'm saying here is, if you're interested in this at all, definitely get the Plus variant. Not really a need to play the original free one unless you just really don't want to spend money on there. But definitely interesting. Yeah, I think I 100%ed this version, by the way. So I played everything on it here. Next up, this is the first representation here that I played was GoldenEye 007. Now, this is kind of half accurate, right? I have the Nintendo 64 cartridge right here. I did play the Nintendo 64 ROM, but I played it on Nintendo Switch Online's expansion pack. So I was playing it through the official emulation offered on the Switch. But it was technically still the N64 version that I'm holding right here. What do I have to say about it? I mean, the game itself, it's still great. Still fun to play through. Disappointing what we got officially, though, unfortunately. I still need to play it. In all honesty, I still need to play it on Xbox. I really didn't, because I've played the leaked Xbox Live Arcade one from like 2007, 2008, and I played that a lot. And what we ended up getting on the Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles was not as good. They just took the original textures and they bumped it up to 1080p or 4K, but the game still runs at 30 frames per second, I believe, on the Xbox, like the official version. It doesn't have the dual engine thing where on here the game is running, like not here, but the Xbox Live Arcade version that was on 360 that never released. That was near perfection. If it ended up getting finished, it would have been perfection. 60 frames per second, would have had local multiplayer, Xbox Live multiplayer. Yeah, by the way, the series version doesn't have Xbox Live multiplayer. I don't know how you mess that up. I don't know how you mess it up. Technically, the N64 version on NSO does have multiplayer through NSO, but that's because essentially the equivalent of NetPlay is baked into the emulator, and then when you're playing through it, you're just kind of emulating, you're showing everyone's screens there, so it's going to work the same as... They took the infrastructure to play the game locally, like 4-player split screen on a TV, and they just end up networking it, and it wasn't any additional effort from what I saw because it was already baked into the emulator, is what I'm saying. But it was really just a half-assed approach on both platforms, whether you played it on Xbox or Switch, unfortunately. It's not the game itself is bad, is that on the Switch version, you get multiplayer, but you get a N64 ROM, and then on the Xbox version, you get nicer upgraded textures, but we've seen what could have been done. We've seen the option for having 2 texture packs, essentially the original upscaled ones and the newer ones, which you can just tap, a button and flip between the two on the Xbox Live Arcade version, the 60 frames per second. And of course, Xbox Live multiplayer were not anywhere to be found. So it's disappointing. I'll say that. Not the game itself, the execution and the build of the game that we got officially in 2023 was definitely disappointing. However, one other thing that is exclusive to the Switch version is that this is something that the N64 games suffer through, and especially GoldenEye does. This is actually more difficult on the Switch because the Joy-Cons are not up to par, not up to snuff for GoldenEye play. And there was, I think I saw it on Twitter, I ended up saving a tweet about this. Because essentially, to have a proper playable, like, controlling experience, you have to go in and select another control set on GoldenEye itself. Then you have to go into your Switch settings and change the button rearrangement and change a few things to have it be all right. But then the problem is the aiming is it's still off and everything. So there were several times, especially near the end, I was dying because like I just couldn't aim properly with the Switch Joy-Cons. And I actually cover this it's going to be coming out, but an episode of Mario's Minute that's coming out this month. I actually had about the same thing. All my friends and I, we had the same thing. We played Mario Party 3. It's not that there's an issue with NSO itself or even the game ROM. It's that the controllers are not optimized at all for N64 games. Unless what I'm saying is it's best to play N64 ROMs with an N64 controller. So if you're not going to have the best experience. It's still GoldenEye though. I still enjoyed it immensely. Despite that, it was nice to play it on the Switch. So, there we go. That was GoldenEye. The last game I ended up finishing for January, which this was definitely a fun one. This was a fun one here, and this is where I'm saying, hey, if you're interested in Streets of Rage 4, but you can only purchase one side-scrolling beat-em-up, you might want to save your money. Because this is going to take precedence right here. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I know it's not something that came out this year, but dang, is it good. It's good. One of my friends and I that I co-op with, we end up... Well, I already had the game. He ended up picking it up, and we spent a few nights playing through it. Incredibly fun game. Super great. I have nothing bad to say about this. And the funny thing is, I don't even care about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I never cared for them. I was never a fan. I never had any interest. I was never into TMNT. Yet I think this is fantastic. So for someone like me, who's just like, I don't care about these turtles at all, and I'm singing praises about this game, you better believe it's a fantastic game. So that's all for January. We're going to get into February here, which was a slow month, it seems, for gaming it up here, but it's all good. This happens. I end up finishing My Friend Pedro, and that was the only game I end up finishing. This is Blood, Bullets, and Bananas, or Blood, Bullets, Bananas, and that is the best way to describe it here. This game is absolutely bananas. It's really fun. It's bloody. It's stupid. It's dumb fun. I cannot recommend this game enough. If you've never played My Friend Pedro, definitely give this a play. It's a good one for sure. Next up was in March, and this was a short game that I ended up playing, and the first one that I can't physically show you all, this one was Abzu, where I'd heard about this game for years, and I had it digitally on Switch. I ended up purchasing it for maybe $2-3 years ago, and I finally decided to give it a try because I wanted to play through it. It was a beautiful game. That's really mostly what I have to say about it. It was a beautiful game. It was great. It was fun to play through. Maybe the only bad thing is I didn't play it sooner. But definitely a beautiful game to play through. And if you like games like that, you might also like something like Flower that was on the PlayStation 3. And I think, it was on PlayStation 4 and Vita and all that. But definitely a great game for sure. So if you like something like Flower, Abzu is also a pretty great one. Now we're into April, and there are 2 more games here. The first one, I can't physically show you. And the first one, actually, I have a representation here. And the second one, I can't physically show you, but there was 2 games I ended up finishing, and I was off the Switch now. I went to the PlayStation 5, right? I went to something a little more modern here. And this was a game that ended up coming out this year, and I wanted to play through it. But it was something that I knew that from history, I was probably only going to play one time and then never touch. So I made a conscious effort, actually, to not purchase this game. I ended up borrowing this game, and that worked out pretty well. But still have great things to say about it. The representation here, it ended up being Dead Space, but for this, I'm showing Dead Space 3 on the 360. The funny thing was, I looked in my game collection, because I was like, oh yeah, I have Dead Space on 360, I'll just grab the 360 copy of it. No, I actually don't. I had it years ago, but I guess I end up selling it without realizing it. It's funny because I have Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, both games that I end up picking up for cheap at thrift stores, but the only thing I can think of is that I definitely sold the original Dead Space, even though I had it on 360, because of this same reason here. I played through it one time, I thought it was excellent, I really enjoyed it, and I never touched it afterwards. And even all these years later, I haven't had a reason to go back to the original Dead Space on 360. But I played through Dead Space on PlayStation 5. Oh my goodness, this game was phenomenal for me. I don't have a bad thing to say about it. I also have a pretty high horror tolerance, and that's not to say I'm going to be like, oh my god, it was so terrifying. Like, no, it was a scary game for sure. But the times, I'll put it like this, my horror tolerance comes out in the form of whenever something scary was happening, I would end up laughing. And there were several times I like started clapping at the TV because I'm like, wow, that was so well executed. That was amazing. If anything, this is how a remake should be done. Phenomenal game. I thought it was fantastic the entire way through, and I loved my playthrough of it. I don't have anything bad to say about it aside from the replayability. Look, there's some people, they're going to play the same game 5-6 times. I'm guilty of doing that. But for whatever reason, for me with the Dead Space games, I'm a one and done person. I play through it, I love the experience, and then I never go back to that game. The reason why I end up picking Dead Space 3 here is because, ironically, this is the one that I have not finished. I got about halfway through it. I had my save on a USB drive on the 360, lost that USB drive, and it was in my first apartment that I had. And I remember I said, okay, I really don't want to replay this, so I'm going to wait for the USB drive to show up. And then as I got closer to moving out, I said, you know what? If I move out and I cannot find this USB drive, then I'm going to replay Dead Space 3 from the beginning. And sure enough, I moved out. That was several apartments ago. I remember what that USB drive looks like. It was a 2 gigabyte like black P&Y drive with like a blue tip at the end. I never saw that USB drive. I can't tell you what happened to that USB drive, but I know it has my 360 profile on there, and it has the save for like a 2/3 the way completed Dead Space 3 on there. I don't know what the heck happened to it, but that was years and years ago. So eventually I do need to replay Dead Space 3 just from the beginning here. But maybe I'll actually replay a game for the first time. Maybe I'll replay Dead Space 2. But the thing is, though, the reason why I don't really replay these games, the Dead Space ones, is because they're not like super long. They're also not super short. But they are such great experiences that I remember them pretty well. So I remember the first Dead Space decently well. I remember Dead Space 2 pretty well. So that's why I don't really feel the need to go back and replay them. Nothing bad about the game. That's just how my brain works, I guess we can say. So there we go. The next game here, which I don't have anything to represent this, and this was another game that I decided to borrow because I said, you know, it looks like an okay game, but I'm going to borrow this because I have a feeling I'm probably going to play it one time and I'm not going to have a reason to go back and play this. I was trying to be a little more thrifty this year. And also one thing I'm going to mention here, I probably should have mentioned near the beginning of the video, you're probably going to notice there's a lot of games, there was a lot of new phenomenal games that came out this year. I was trying to focus on what I had. So that meant there was a lot of games that I ended up not finishing or not playing. One of them, for example, and some of them I just wasn't in the mood for, like Starfield, haven't played it. What game was the other one? Zelda. Was that Breath of the Wild? Or what was the new one? No. See, Tears of the Kingdom. That was it. Tears of the Kingdom. I played 30 minutes of it. Not that it's a bad game. I just wasn't really in the mood to play it at that point. So I was in a really weird gaming mood this year is what I'm saying. So it was kind of a mix of I was picking certain games I really, really wanted. And then for the most part, I wasn't really gunning after the big AAA releases because I was kind of more focused on what I had or I just wasn't interested in the game at the time. So there was that. This was one game, though. I don't know if it came out this year or if it came out last year. But I, again, like the developer. And I wanted to give this a try because I liked previous games that they end up making. Excuse me. I like previous games that they end up making. But I looked at it and I was like, I'm probably not going to want to play it again. And if I do want to replay it, then I'll buy it. But if not, I'm just going to borrow it and then I'll be done with it. The Quarry is what I'm saying on the PlayStation 5. This game was good. There was a few things that I had to complain about it, though. One of them was the way the facial recognition worked in the game and like the way the faces are. Because for anyone who doesn't know, it's similar to other games like Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Until Dawn, where they do a whole lot of mocap, and it's kind of like you're playing through a film, and I really love that. And Until Dawn from Supermassive Games is one of my favorite games, and I've played through that. Like, that is one of those games, yeah, sure, you could play it and be one and done with it, but I have played through that game like 6 times. It is such a fun game to play through. However, when it came to the quarry, I noticed with the faces with the mocap, there was just something off about all of them. And it was something kind of have to get used to, but also something kind of uncomfortable to watch at the same time. Then this is the scene I tell people about. There was one scene there that legitimately got me upset. Essentially, there was two people who are they're at a camp, right? The base is they're at a camp, and then there's a killer that's going around. Essentially, something like that. My phone is right here. There we go. We're going to use the phone for a demonstration. So the guy is like, there's two people there. They go to the camp counselor's office. There is a landline. And in real time, I just have to complain about this. In real time, there is a killer on the loose. They don't know what's going on. And the conversation goes something like this between two people. It's like, okay, hey, should we call an ambulance? Yeah, well, let's call an ambulance. Okay, so how should we call an ambulance? Well, we're going to have to call an ambulance. Okay, so I got the phone here. So do we have the number for calling the ambulance? So I'm not sure. I think it's just 911. So do I call 911 and ask them for an ambulance? Or do I tell them like, hey, there's a crazy person who's killing everyone here and we don't know what's going on, and then they're going to call the ambulance? Or do I say, hey, we need help, we need to get an ambulance? Or do I have them like transfer me to get us an ambulance? Or what do we do? I think you should call them and say, hey, we need help. We are at this camp. We need an ambulance. So I just like pick up and call them. And the conversation goes on for like 2 minutes, right? And I was screaming at my TV essentially. I'm just like, there is danger right now. Just pick up the phone, call 911 and call them. And guess what happens? Guess what happens? It is the most predictable thing. When they have a 2-minute conversation about what to say on the phone, they then finally dial 911. 10 seconds into the 911 call, the line gets disconnected. Because of course it gets disconnected because it's a horror setting, right? And then it was at that point I end up realizing, oh, wait, right, all the characters in here are supposed to be represented. Like, it's essentially Zoomers going to camp and going through one of these slasher moments. And Zoomers don't like talking on the phone. Right. Just, if you're in that situation, just call 911 first, and then the operators are going to go through. Don't just do... Okay, yeah, that scene actually legitimately upsetted me when I was playing through that game. Couldn't even upset me. See, I couldn't even say it properly there. To something less upsetting here. In May, I end up playing through Ring Fit Adventure yet again. Currently, right now, I have finished this game. Actually, this was my new game plus. I think this was the third time I end up finishing the game. Because afterwards, now I am going back from the beginning and I'm replaying it again. There's essentially like 3 tiers. Like, there's the original one you go through, and then you pretty much do a new game plus, and then you do a new game plus. And typically it takes me about a year. But if you go on the same profile and you start replaying those, you can go through it much quicker. And there's a lot of enemies that are not in there, so you can go through it faster. So the funny thing is, even though this was the third time I finished the game, I'm currently on, right now, in December, excuse me, I'm currently on my 6th playthrough of the game. But you can't, like, you can still level up, but you don't unlock more tiers is what I'm saying, unless you either, like, wipe out your save or you start on a new profile. But either way, I played this again. This game, I tell people, I sing praises about it. I end up paying $80 for this, for the game itself and the RingCon back in 2019. And I have not had to pay for a gym membership since then. I really got into it when I paused my gym membership because COVID ended up happening. And then I started working out at home. I started using this. And then it was such a good workout. And then I was eating properly. I was walking the dog there and everything too. But it was such a good workout and it worked so well for me that I said, you know, after like 5-6 months, I end up going in and I cancel my gym membership because they had an option where it's like you can pause it for up to 6 months. And then if you cancel it, we're not going to, you know, you're not going to accrue any fees or any fines or whatever. So I canceled it. So I haven't been to a gym since early 2020. And I'll tell you this, I'm in good shape from this game here. My BMI is normal, my blood work looking good, all that fun stuff. Because, you know, I watch what I eat too for the most part, even though I do love food. But I think everyone loves food. But either way, phenomenal game right here. Definitely worth the return on investment. I even end up paying a little bit more for this because I used the ring con so much that it ended up bending. So one day I end up going to a shop and I end up buying, they had it used there, but for $30, I end up buying another ring con that was in much better condition, stiff, tight, everything, and then I end up getting a new leg strap because I had really messed up and stretched out the leg strap because I had used this so much. I play this, if I can, Monday through Friday every day, every week of the year. So there's times I do take breaks, like if I'm on vacation or if I have company over or something. But for the most part, no, I'm trying to do it 5 days a week. So all in all, before tax, of course, I've paid $110 for everything Ring Fit related. I'm talking 2 leg straps, 2 Joy-Cons, and the game software itself. I've paid $110 over the course of 4 years now because I got the game over 4 years ago. So that is a incredible return on investment. And I know some people also might say, hey, it's not going to be the best workout. I'm a believer that the best workouts that you can do are the ones that you're actually going to do. Is going to the gym and lifting a bunch of weights great? Absolutely, as long as you have proper form and all that. But if you're only going to do that once every 2 months, that's not a good workout for you. Is walking the best thing out there? It's not the best thing out there. It's good for you, but if you can dedicate yourself to walk 1 mile every single day, then that's good. That is a workout that works for you. And doing a workout, especially doing a workout consistently, is better than doing no workout. So I would say doing a okay workout regimen that you will actually stick to is much better than doing a excellent one that you're only going to be motivated to do like once every 2 months. So that's how it goes. One thing too is that this game is separate from like all my other games. I actually have this like in my living room. There's a lot of natural light there. So if you see this here, I've played this game so much that you can just look. It is quite literally, it's laid out so long, it is sun faded. You can mostly see it from the red right there. And even like if you look on the side here, you can, let me kind of sandwich it a little bit. You can kind of see that it is sun faded at this point just from the UV rays and the UV light. So the case is not in the best shape anymore. But at the same time, I don't mind all too much because if anybody complains about it, it's like, yeah, I like to keep my games in good shape. But to me, this isn't really something I'm trying to like keep in the collection for collecting purposes. This is something I'm regularly using. And I think, the wear and tear on it, if anything, just shows that I do actually use this game. It doesn't just sit nice and pretty on a shelf somewhere. So there we go. In June, this was a big gaming month for me. There was a game that I was working on in the background for all this time here, and I finally ended up finishing it. Way too late, man, way too late. Persona 5 Royal, a phenomenal game. I had wanted, like, I bought the Take Your Heart edition of Persona 5 on the PS4 years ago. Unfortunately, it ended up coming out at around a time I wasn't really interested in the PS4 because I was playing the Switch so much. And I was like, man, this game would be perfect on Switch. And I think I really wanted it in a portable form factor because I had played through Persona 4 Golden and Persona 4 Dancing All Night on the Vita. And Persona 4 Golden, it was not my first Persona game, but it was the first Persona game that I fell in love with and that I played all the way through. So I wanted that experience. I was like, man, the Switch would be perfect for this. And we got teased so hard about this, but it finally came out. I ended up getting Persona 5. I got Persona 5 Royal actually on PS4, funny enough. And then when it finally came out on Switch, I ended up waiting for it to go on sale at least, and then I ended up picking it up here. And then something finally motivated me to give it a shot. And this, I'll tell you, it's a slow burn. It's an excellent game, phenomenal RPG, but I'd say this will probably take you minimum 85, 90 hours minimum to play through. And there's going to be times, even if you literally buckle down all weekend and stay inside and shut yourself in and play through the game, you'll make like good progress, mind you, but it's going to feel slow. It is a slow burn. So this game took me maybe 3 months to finish. But I finally did it in June. And I don't have any bad things to say about it. It plays wonderfully on Switch. It handles incredibly well. And the only bad thing I would have to say is that I should have played it sooner. My mistake. I should have played it sooner, but I absolutely love this. I loved Persona 5 Royal. I started playing the other Persona 5 Strikers. That was it. I also started playing that on Switch. I need to get back to that as well too. I didn't finish it this year, but I'm I don't know, maybe a third of the way through, something like that. That was the one that was a teaser, because Persona 5 Strikers, which is technically a sequel to this, ended up coming out on Switch before Persona 5 Royal did. And there was even like rumors and all that, because typically these games always leak out. So like P5S was announced, and Atlas kept asking, hey, would you be interested in the Persona games on Switch? And then P5S comes out and everyone is thinking, oh my god, it's going to be Persona 5 Switch, it's going to be Persona 5 Switch. No, it was Persona 5 Strikers. So what I'm saying is I was incredibly happy that we did not get fully burned. But you know, Atlas's fault as well too. We should have had this on Switch sooner, okay? We should have had this on Switch sooner. There's no reason for us to wait so long for it. Another physical game I don't have here, unfortunately, but maybe I could use a representation here. There we go. Actually ended up got sent this. It was a little prototype cartridge from the company who was making it. This is Kudzu, but not representative of this. Well, this is a representation, but I ended up playing through Grimace's Birthday, which, in case you do not know, it was a freely released game that I think it's on like grimacesbirthday.com. It's from the McDonald's Corporation, and the reason why it was so special is because in 2023, the McDonald's Corporation ended up officially licensing and essentially publishing. They didn't develop it. They hired out a team of developers like to build the game, but they licensed and they publish a Game Boy homebrew. Because if you go to the official website, all that is a Game Boy Color ROM, even though the extension is .gb. And when you go to the site and you play it there, yeah, you can play it on phone, you can play it on your computer, but that's just a web page with a Game Boy emulator, and it loads up the Game Boy Color ROM, and you're playing through it on there. That was so cool. And of course, immediately, people figured out how you can download the ROM from there, and then you can go through and you can play it on other platforms. You can play it on your own emulator. You could play it on a Game Boy cartridge if you flash it over to one. You could play it on a flash cart if you put it on there. I personally end up playing it on my 3DS, new 3DS specifically, but I made a Game Boy Color virtual console inject of it and played through it. The funny thing is, too, the game was still getting updated, so I know the version I played is outdated compared to how it is now, but yeah, Grimace's Birthday, it's a fun, quick game, definitely a neat one to play through, and who would have thought that the McDonald's Corporation would have helped to release a Game Boy homebrew in 2023? That was definitely not on my list of things to, look out for, is what I'm saying. So there we go. Next game was Turok on the Xbox 360, and if you listened to my June episode of Mario's Minute, I did talk about this game. This game is not good. It's not. I remember I played the demo of it when it came out, and I was like, because I was a Turok fan, I was. And this was the reboot that was coming out, and I said, okay, cool, let me play the demo, and I liked the demo, and then I played through the full game. I think I rented it at one point, and then I purchased it later, and I got maybe about 75% of the way through, because the game is so frustrating. It is essentially all the worst aspects of a 7th generation first-person shooter wrapped into one terrible package, disgracing the Turok name. And the crazy thing is, too, it's not even like this game killed the franchise. This game apparently sold commercially well enough that a sequel was in development, but the developers here, was it Propaganda Game? I guess Propaganda Games, I want to say, or it was Propaganda Games developed the game, and then they published it through Touchstone, and then Touchstone Games ended up going out of business, and the Turok IP wasn't picked up, so Turok 2, well, I guess the specific Turok 2 reboot, the sequel to this is what I'm trying to say, is vaporware. It never came out. Honestly, they can keep it. This game is not good. It's not. It's really not good. I end up heavily modding a 360 that is now my main 360, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be going through some games. So, for example, like Ninja Gaiden 2, I still need to finish that as well. But I said, I'm going to play through that. Turok, I was like, you know what? I never finished this game. I'm going to mess around with some trainers. I'm going to find a trainer. I'm going to finish this game. It's bad. Like, I even played through the game with infinite health, infinite ammo, and all that. And even with that, it was still difficult, if you can believe it. It's such a frustrating experience. It's so bad. I don't recommend anyone plays this game. Even if you're a Turok fan, good. Just avoid this game. Please, avoid this game. Do not play this game. But I can at least say that I finished it, finally. The next game here, which is a game I physically cannot show you all, because it's too big to show you all, so I'm going to have to like put up a photo or video or something, was an arcade game. It was actually House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn. End up going to an arcade, end up playing through this game. A fun experience. Very much loved the House of the Dead games. I was happy I was able to finish that. I think we finished it within like 45 minutes, something like that. Definitely a fun one. And then the last game I ended up finishing in June, which was a game I was steadily working on, was another incredibly unique visual novel that I saw. I think, shout out to Metal Jesus Rocks. Him and Radical Reggie end up doing a video where they did their pickups, and they showed this game here, and I was so curious about it, I ended up finding a good deal on a physical copy of it. So it was a Necro Barista Final Pour. These are like the kind of games that I've been getting into, where it's like you are a barista that is working at a coffee shop, where this coffee shop sits somewhere between the living and the undead universes, where it's not like dead people are showing up, well, kind of, sort of, actually. It's dead people are showing up there before they pass on to the afterlife, and they have like a final 24 hours they can hang out there, but also, it is a real coffee shop, and there are real life flesh and blood humans that also come there, do different things, whatever it is. You go around, you are, interacting with the different patrons, learning about their backstories. It's a fantastic game. I love this game. The only downside is on the Switch, the, excuse me, the optimization is so bad on it. The times you do have to move around, the times there is movement in the game, the frame rate is so bad. It is so bad. The game was not optimized at all. And the only thing I can really think of for an explanation for that is, well, it's a visual novel on the Switch. It's not like it's a first-person shooter. It's not even like it's an RPG, so it's fine. But there's really, like, tech-wise and spec-wise, there's no reason why this game should perform this poorly on the Switch. Don't let it stop you, though. If you can play it on a better platform, for sure, play it. It's a good game. But even then, for me, like, it wasn't a huge distraction. It was annoying, but it wasn't enough to hinder the experience. So that was all for June. In July, I only ended up finishing one game then, and this is going to be a representation here. You know what? I got the wrong game. I'm going to have to get I have to get the right game here. What the heck? All right, sorry about that. I had to get this here, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Not on PlayStation 2, though. This is a representation, although I would say a great representation because not only, great classic game on a great classic system, but this is actually the original launch day version that I had from, when did this come out? Was it 2002 or 2003? It's going to say on here, is it not? I used to know this off. I feel like this came out in 2003. Did it not? No, it had to be 2002. I feel like it came out in 2002 because 2001 was when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. Either way, still the original one. This always annoyed me. The top tab here to hold in the manual broke, but it was like that on launch. Like literally, my mom brought this home, brand new, sealed. I opened it up. That was broken, so that was not my doing. However, it is complete. It has everything here. So this is my own, like, literal childhood copy right here of the game. That's all to say I ended up finishing this on Switch. So this version is the better version, funny enough, because the Switch has, it wasn't even the homebrew version. It was the trilogy version. And the reason why I finished it was because I had the game on Switch, of course, and I was about, like, let's say 2/3 the way through it. And that was the only game of the Grand Theft Auto 3D trilogy that I never finished on Switch. I played 3 first because I absolutely love 3. That's my favorite game of all time. Played through San Andreas because I'd only played through that once before, so I wanted to play through it again. And then I got about halfway through Vice City. And the thing is with Vice City, it's one of those games, it never, like, fully resonated with me. See, I was a 90s kid, I was not an 80s kid, so it seems like all the people who loved Vice City, it was either their first foray into Grand Theft Auto, or they have big 80s nostalgia. I have no nostalgia for the 80s at all. The voice cast is great on there, but there's a lot of things about the game that I just didn't click with as well, and even at one point, it's not very well explained, because you see, as opposed to like gang wars and stuff in the game, and I'm kind of explaining this more for people who haven't played it before, but also for people who have played it, maybe you can agree or not. You have to own like property, and then part of the property ownership is you're buying up businesses, and then to have those businesses generate money, there's also then missions that you have to do for those businesses. And I remember getting stuck with this when I was a kid, and I had the guide, and I kind of was going through it there, and I forgot about this. At one point, the game just stops. Like, you go through your side missions, you go through your main story missions, and then the game just stops. And you're trying to figure out, well, what can you do next? Because you keep going to the Versetti estate, but you can't load up any missions there. And it turns out what you have to do, which it doesn't really explain it anywhere from what I recall. And I thought maybe this is a thing I missed when I was a kid, but even as an adult, it messed me up as well too. You then have to go and purchase several businesses and then play through the missions on those businesses. And there's a few of them that you have to purchase and have to play through in order to progress the storyline. But then you also have to get to a certain threshold of business ownership and generating that revenue for yourself in order to unlock the final missions of the game. And again, that's not explained. I had to look up a guide again, and then I found that out, and I said, oh, that makes sense. And then you're playing through the all the missions there, and they're just not as fun. They're not as good, and you kind of just have to like just trudge through it on there. So that's also one thing I really didn't like about Vice City either. Yeah, out of the original like the 3D trilogy, it's probably my least favorite, which is why like typically I'll play San Andreas. I really like it, even though I only finished it once before because it is a long game. 3, I always play through, always love that game, but Vice City, I always just get kind of bored of. I'll get to a point in the game and I'm like, I'm good. And that's what happened on the Switch. So that's why I went through and I was like, let me go back and finish on the Switch so I can say I've played through all the 3D trilogy on the Switch. I don't recommend it on the Switch. They are definitely not fixed. They do not perform well. So there we go. Next up in August, was this a big game month? Yes, it was, for me at least. Next up here was, I finished another 5 games in August. This was Saints Row the Third. This was one of those games that my friend and I, we have been co-oping together. We mostly play, actually we pretty much only play on the Switch, but one of my friends and I were co-oping this. And typically the way it works with our game nights is that we will... If there's more than 2 people, typically this one friend and I, we're the ones who show up to almost every single game night. If there's more than the 2 of us, we'll pick something that allows for more people. But if it's only the 2 of us, we kind of just focus on one game that we're working on. So one of them was Streets of Rage 4. Another one was Shredder's Revenge. Then we had the Saints Row game, so we worked through Saints Row the Third. And currently we're working through Saints Row 4. So this is a great game. Great game here. Some people say it's the best one of the series, and I feel like it's kind of a debate a lot of times between Saints Row 2 and Saints Row 3. We're actually, funny enough, currently playing through Saints Row 4 right now, and it's not a bad game. But what I can say is I can see why people really disliked Saints Row 4, because in every single Saints Row game, from the first to the second to the third, it is the crazy factors going up and up and up, and you can do more and more. And then Saints Row 4, a lot of that gets pulled back. So I could see why a lot of people didn't like it as much, especially coming from the third one right here. I will say, on Switch, performance, not really going to be the best, but also not terrible at the same time. It is impressive with what can be done here. And the Switch, in a lot of ways, just feels like a portable Xbox 360 for me, with all these 7th generation ports that are on there. So, a fun game. We worked on it for a few months. We ended up finishing it. Really fun. We just had stupid fun with this game. Don't really have anything bad to say about it. Untitled Goose Game. I get the bug to play this game here, and I actually didn't play it on Switch for once. I actually ended up playing it on the Steam Deck, because this was around the time, was it when No, I had the Steam Deck before. Sorry, my timeline is all over the place. But I think I had just done the Deck HD screen upgrade on there, and I wanted to play the Steam Deck, and I wanted to play through something that I could, see differences on. So I ended up playing through Untitled Goose Game, and I was able to see the nice colors on there. And then also, because this game runs so well, it runs on a potato, I was able to also play it in 1200p in portable mode, and it was real cool. I love this game. The year it came out, which was 2020, that was it. It was my game of the year that year. So That should explain how much I love this game. So I absolutely love it. Or was it really? Hold on. My timeline's mixed all the heck up. I don't know if this came out in 2020 or if it came out in 2019. Let me look that up real quick. Let me also look up Vice City as well. All right, Vice City did come out in 2002, so I was right on that. And okay, so Untitled Goose Game came out in 2019. The reason why I said 2020 is because the physical came out in 2020, and the copyright date on the back shows 2020. So yeah, it was my game of the year for 2019 is what I'm saying. Now, this is definitely not a game that I'm going to get confused on between like year to year right here because this came out so long ago, but it ended up getting a remake here, which was Quake. I ended up picking this up here for the Switch, of course, and I think I actually had the digital copy at one point because the digital copy was like, it went on sale for like super cheap, but I also had the physical copy as well too because I wanted it physically. You know, funny enough, it's one of those games I never played through the original Quake. I never even touched the original Quake until the remake right here, or the remaster, I should say. It wasn't a remake, it was a remaster. I have experience with Quake 2, Quake 3, Quake 4, but not the original Quake. So it was really jarring to go back to this and be like, wow, this is so different than the other games, because I mean this in the most respectful way. The other Quakes are spaceman shooters. And in this one you go through and it's dark and it's gothic and it's very Lovecraftian, and it's the only Quake that's like this. And it's incredibly good. Also, the Switch port plays incredibly well. I loved it. Have nothing bad to say about it. Also, shout out to MVG. Good job working on this, man. But yeah, Quake, very good game. End up loving playing through that for the first time. Now, this was a nice blast of nostalgia here and going back to my childhood in a way. And these are actually games I never played through here. But I end up getting this. It is going to be the most like random game I feel like here. The Humongous Classics or Classic Collection, which ends up taking 6 of the Humongous Entertainment games and puts them on one cartridge or one package if you're buying it digitally. So I believe this was like $60, I want to say, but it's $10 for each game, so it's not bad there. You get a couple of Pajama Sam games, a Freddy Fish game, a Spy Fox game, and then 2 Putt-Putt games, which I was interested in the Putt-Putt games. So I don't have them on PC. I have actually, like, I had the disc of it, like Putt-Putt Travels Through Time. I actually had the disc of it for Windows years ago, and I think I probably donated it because I was like, I'm not going to be playing it again there. But I ended up getting this, and I also was interested to see how it would play on the Switch. Definitely a bit painful because it's meant to be clicked through with like a mouse, not a keyboard. You don't need a keyboard for it, although you can like type a few things here and there. But it's kind of one of those like kids like kind of sort of edutainment games. It's fun though. It is they're unique experiences. Definitely a nice nostalgia blast of the past. And I wanted to play through the Putt-Putt games because I'd only played through one of them, and I'd never finished it when I was younger. So they were quick games, but I ended up playing Putt-Putt Saves the Zoo, which I had never played through that game before. Never touched it, actually. And I played that one because it is the precursor to Putt-Putt Travels Through Time, which that was the one that I owned when I was younger. And I wanted to play it, like back then, I even wanted to play it because very basic thing. I was a young boy. I loved cars. I saw Putt-Putt. I'm like, oh my God, a game with cars. And I played it and I fell in love with it. I didn't fall in love with it enough to like finish it, but I ended up finishing it now as an adult. So there we go. Not really the best on Switch in all honesty, just because of the form factor of it. It's not bad, but definitely PC games that are meant to be played on PC. Not much else to say about that there. So that was everything for August. Now, I guess the last few months here, these were months where there was a lot that was going on. I won't go into details, but there was a lot, like, in my personal life is what I'm saying, what was going on that kept me very busy. And these are the times where it's, like I mentioned, I could have months where I finish 5 games in a month. And I could have other months where I'm barely struggling to finish 1 game. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So just so you all know and so you all see that here. So September, I end up replaying this game, which it seems like I replay this about every year because I absolutely love this. This game is an absolute joy. Donut County. I played it on the Switch. I played it on Switch. I played it on PlayStation 4. I've played it on Xbox. But I love the Switch copy of it. Especially, I have the physical one right here. And if you can see, and I pointed this out before, if you could see right there, that is BK. I'm presuming that's BK. It has to be BK. But he is being held up and he's holding a Nintendo Switch in his hands for the controller, or his little paws. That's just adorable, right? Just very meta as well, too, holding a Switch on the cover of a Switch game. I love that. This game is great. I have nothing but good things to say about it. If you've never played it, definitely play it. It is about a girl who is friends with this raccoon named BK. They both work at this donut shop, and there is a app where patrons and customers could order donuts. And the thing is, the donuts that are being delivered are these holes here, and it's very much just like a funny, quirky, like almost like Katamari type experience. Quick game, you can play through it, absolutely hilarious. I love this game. Donut County, love it. Next in October, which I thought was incredibly fitting, was the House of the Dead remake. This is a remake done well, and I have played through this before, but my girlfriend and I played this here on Switch, and the fun thing about this is that I noticed I never, like, I probably mentioned this the last time I talked about this game. It's one of those games I always forget the first House of the Dead exists. And it's not like it just doesn't exist, like, but what I mean by that is when I think of the first House of the Dead, I always think of House of the Dead 2. And then I realized, like, years later, when I end up playing House of the Dead, I played it on the Saturn, I was like, wait a minute, it takes place in, like, this mansion here? I don't remember this at all. And then I realized that all those years, all the times I thought I was playing the first House of the Dead in the arcade, I was actually playing House of the Dead 2. Like, I can still clearly remember how that game starts out and everything. And I just, even though it says House of the Dead, I think it was a Mandela effect thing. Like, in my mind, for some reason, that was always the first one. Even though I clearly could see it's like House of the Dead 2. It says it on the marquee. I've played through House of the Dead 3. House of the Dead 4? Have I played through? No, that one I tried to play through and the arcade machine was busted. It was running at like half a frame per second. So couldn't play it and it took my money. But yeah, this was when I actually got to play through it. And I've played through this game several times. I think this is my third playthrough of it now on Switch. So a very good game for sure. Definitely love this. This is the Limited edition as well too. Not limited, Limited edition. Not much else to say about that. November, we're on that now. I was playing this cozy game here to gear up for the sequel, which actually came out earlier in the year, and I'm still actually working on right now. I'm finally getting around to touching it and playing it, and I just recently ended up buying it because it did come out earlier in the year, but I was waiting for the physical of it here. This was Coffee Talk. Now, this is a game I've been singing the praises of for several years. It's a cozy game. It's great. It's fun to play through. I just love this experience. You are a coffee shop owner, and your coffee shop, it takes place in like a new like alternative version of Seattle where there's humans there, but there's also like orcs and vampires and werewolves and all these other people. They like integrate into the normal life is what I'm saying. And your coffee shop is also only open at night. So it's open from like 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., something like that. It is the only nocturnal coffee shop around. Now, I absolutely love this game. I've played through it several times, and I played through it again because I want to play through the game, the first one here, so I can gear up for the second one. And I am really glad I did, because when I played through the second one, it picks up pretty quickly, and it kind of just, when I picked up the second one, I said, this feels like home. I could see the improvements, I could see the differences on there, but at the same time, in the best possible way, it kind of just feels like a DLC expansion of the first one, which is fine because I wanted more from the first one. Now, for my final game that I end up finishing this year, at least at the time of recording, and I don't know if I'm going to finish any other games here. Yeah, we'll see about that. But for my final game I end up finishing was Football Game on the Switch. This is another game, like I said, at the end of the year here, I was just really busy in all honesty. So I was like, hey, I got to finish something right here. And this was a quick game I knew I played through before, actually several times. And the last time I played through this game was in 2019. So I was glad that I got to replay this here in 2023. It's a short game. It's published by Radalaika Games. It is a point-and-click type game where you are a football player in high school and you are going to meet your girlfriend, but it's not so simple and it gets kind of psychological and creepy and confusing. And I only played through it one time this time around because I kind of knew how the game went, although I still need some help kind of getting through it there. However, the interesting thing about it is that, like, when I played it years ago, I remember I needed some help getting through, so I was looking at a guide. And then when I finished it, my reaction was kind of, what just happened? So I immediately went back and replayed the game, and it made a little more sense. And then I think I might have even replayed it a third time just to see how fast I can get through it. But it's one of those games, it's very open-ended, kind of minimalistic in that degree, and really just lets you think for yourself and process what the game means to you and what just happened in your own way, which I do appreciate that. And interesting, it's a unique game for sure. If you can, pick it up for cheap on a sale or something, and it looks like it's something worth your while in terms of point and click type games, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. Either way, that's all to say here. This is the stack of games that I have finished this year in 2023. Now, I went through and counted, and not just this here, I'm including the digital titles as well, because obviously the digital titles I don't physically have here, and even if I did, I'd show you like a piece of paper or something. But I'd say this is a healthier stack than I imagine, especially... I'm not trying to drop that. Especially because, like, near the end of the year, I was looking, I'm like, man, I'm only finishing one here, one here, one here. But sometimes it helps with, like, ebbs and flows of, gaming and how I'm feeling and time-wise and all that. So I was kind of able to make up for it throughout the year. Because, like I said, there were 3 months where I finished 5 games, which is a lot for me there. But either way, I end up finishing, by my count, 25 games this year, which I'm happy with. Were there many new releases? No, there weren't. But at the same time, I'm happy I'm at least able to keep up with this here. So that's a cool thing about it, and that's what I love about this challenge. So I was able to do this yet again. So this is, wow, I didn't realize this. This is now 8 years in a row where I have dedicated myself to finishing at least one game every month. And that is something I'm happy with, because like I said, I love gaming. I love game collecting. I love messing around with games, with consoles. I love playing games. It's something I don't want to stop doing. So that's why I kind of have this here. And some people might say it sounds like work and like it feels like work. And to a degree it is, because the thing is, and I'm kind of addressing younger folks here. When you're in your adult life and all that, and you're really busy being an adult, it's easy to let certain things, hobbies, things you love just slip away. So you kind of have to schedule and carve out time if you want to continue those things. And in that regard, it does feel like work in some ways. But at the same time, if it's something you really love, you're going to find ways to do it. Either way, that's about it for this video here. If you all enjoyed it, let me know. Give this video a like. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well, too. There is going to be one more video aside from the podcast that's going to roll out this year, and that's going to be near the end of the year. It's going to be my game of the year for 2023. So one of these games that I finished in this list is going to be my game of the year for 2023. That's always how I do this here. I think I've been doing that since 2012, 2013, something like that. It's been over 10 years at this point that I've been doing the game of the year here on the channel. But either way, that's about it for this video here. Last thing, if you all have a list of games, this is always fun to see as well too. If you all have a list of games that you finished this year, share it down in the comments and maybe give some thoughts on them. I always love seeing those. Some people get super detailed about it. Some people just put up a list. Some people even segmented out month to month, because apparently this challenge has also kind of inspired others to do the same thing, which is really awesome, because hey, if we can all play some more games, that's phenomenal, fantastic to see, and it's a fun hobby that people should enjoy. Anyways, as I said before, this is Mr. Mario signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.